Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome to Talk About Gay Sex Live. We are live on our Facebook page, Talk About Gay Sex. We are a live podcast tonight, but we come out every Tuesday on iTunes, Stitcher, all the...
Well, I mean, I came out a long time ago, but the podcast comes out every Tuesday.
Yes, exactly, girl. I'm joined by this loudmouth next to me, Steve Carpenter, one of my
That would be me.
Yeah. And on the far end, beautiful Jeremy Ross Lopez.
Hi, guys.
How are you guys?
Excellent.
We want to let you know, and hello out there to live stream land. Today we're going to be talking about bisexuality and polyamory. And so we want to hear from you. Simply like a comment, love us. We're very needy.
Very needy.
And ask us questions. We have an amazing special guest today, Zachary Zane. He's going to help. Yep. Woo! He's going to help break it down for us. But just once again to let you know, we are at Rebar. Rebar is here in New York City and Chelsea. It's one of my favorite bars, and we love them. The next time you are in New York City, please come here to Rebar, because it's like they have hot nights. They also have my friend's party called Mailroom. And Antonio's party is May 11th, Friday, May 11th, which is this Friday, right, y'all? So please support. We will say it again.
Darling.
But I wanted to check in with you guys because we just played Janelle Monáe's song, Make Me Feel. And how do you guys, don't you love that song?
I do.
It's a great song.
It's so sexy.
And the video is really good, too.
Hot. So Janelle Monáe actually came out originally as bisexual, but then she actually decided she read what pansexual was, and she actually decided that she liked that better. I think she's so cool. Did you see her at the Met Gala?
She identified with it better, I think, is a better way to phrase it.
Yes.
But yes.
Absolutely, right. And we're going to ask Zachary about what pansexual, more about that. But yeah, did you see her, Jeremy, at the Met?
Yes, I loved her outfit, and she's just a really cool individual as a person in general.
Who were some of your favorite people at the Met Gala? Who did you love?
Of course, Kim.
Kim Kardashian.
J-Lo. Rihanna. Who didn't love Rihanna?
Yes, Riri was good.
Somebody out there liked us. Yep. How about Madonna, y'all? I mean, she's the one that
Madonna
performed.
looked
Can we hear for her?
Yes, Madonna did
looked
it.
good. J-Lo was fabulous.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yes.
I don't know what she had on her head, but it was just, she looked fabulous, but that I don't know what she had on her head.
It was very cathedral.
It looked like a confessional.
Absolutely. So, you guys, we want to hear from you in the audience. We want to hear from you on our Facebook page. Jeremy, you're checking in on questions and comments. So, and are you seeing some feed?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, and by the way, my favorite show right now is we probably just have to turn the main
down
just a teeny bit.
Feedback is not pretty.
So my favorite show right now is Summer, the Donna Summer musical. So if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. She's one of our gay icons, and I mean, please go see that. But without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest. His name, he is a Brooklyn-based freelance writer, speaker, and activist whose work focuses on bisexuality, gender identity, politics, relationships, and culture. He is a contributing editor for The Advocate magazine and Pride. He also has a weekly column at bisexual.org and currently writes for The Washington Post, Cosmopolitan, and Out magazine. He's been featured in numerous other publications as well. He's a leading bisexual activist. Zachary Zane has spoken across the country and universities and panels alike. He attended the bisexual White House briefing, y'all, at the White House last year and has been featured as an expert on a number of panelists, including Dan Savage, who's one of my icons and why we do the show, Savage Love. Without further ado, please welcome Zachary Zane.
Woo!
Bring your cocktail, dear. There you go.
Yeah, bring your cocktail. Hi.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Good, 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 good.
And he's wearing a crop top.
I just want to first introduce Zachary because I met Zachary at Gay Pride a year ago, and you were with a friend of yours, and you were done up, and I was so into your guys' look. You guys look so fabulous, and we just went up to you, but then I found out that you were bisexual and have a lot to say. What was Gay Pride like for you last year?
I mean, Gay Pride is always a lot of fun. I was actually there with my ex-boyfriend, so that's who that was. And he was my ex at the time.
Okay.
But he was visiting New York, and yeah, it was just a drunken, slutty mess.
Drunken, slutty mess.
Yeah, what Pride is
That
supposed
sounds
to
like
be.
fun.
That's a good mix.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I like that. I like that. Before we get into your background and everything, you saw a show that Steve Carpenter and I saw called 217 Boxes of Dr. Henry Anonymous. Briefly tell us who this icon is that we all should know about.
Sure, he's one of those gay activists that is probably one of the most important people in the past century, yet most people have no idea who he is. So he is responsible for, in essence, removing the idea...
Talk right into that.
Sorry, talk right into it.
Yes.
Of removing homosexuality.
Just like it's a nice big penis. Right real close to it.
No. He's responsible for removing homosexuality from the DSM, which is what psychiatrists and psychologists use.
Diagnostic Statistics Manual.
Exactly.
Yes.
So to diagnose mental illness. So he's the reason why homosexuality is no longer considered a mental illness by medical professionals.
Right.
So we owe him a lot of thank yous,
Yes,
right?
we do. We absolutely owe him a lot of
our
thank yous.
freedom.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, all right, today we want to talk about bisexuality. The reason I wanted to do the show about bisexuality was because I feel like we have so many freedoms, and
I'm not in it.
we share LGBT. There's LGB, and I feel like oftentimes we don't give the B enough credit. Like it's a phase, and some of us gay men, myself included, at one point used it as like a crutch,
stone,
a stepping. Yeah, thanks. A stepping
Yeah.
stone. And so I feel like, since we march in the same parade, that we don't understand it enough. When did you realize that you were bisexual and really bisexual?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm really talking to that.
I was thinking about this recently, like what was my earliest like same-sex attraction I had, and I remember when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, I'd run around the playground playing Kissy Monster with my best friend, where I would go up to him, kiss him on the lips, at which point he would cry, run away, and then I would chase him again. So I've literally been chasing boys since I
you were 5.
since I was 5 years old.
The boys, though.
But when I always thought I was interested in men. I always was a little bit more flamboyant. Everyone always thought I was gay. I remember when I saw my psychiatrist at 15, and
You had a psychiatrist at 15.
Oh yeah, I had problems.
Don't we all?
He's artistic. All artists, all artists should see a shrink at some point.
But so I tell him, I say, I think I might be gay, and he goes, "Well, do you like women?" And I go, "Yes, absolutely." And he goes, "Then you're not gay." I go, "Well, what if I'm bisexual?" And he goes, "Oh no, bisexuality doesn't exist in men."
What?
And that was it. And that was the end of the conversation.
And
So
that
your
was a professional.
psychiatrist said bisexuality doesn't exist in men.
And that was it. And that was the
and
end
that
of the
was a
conversation.
professional.
That
Clearly,
was a
that's
medical
a
professional.
non-trained individual with sexuality in general.
And these are the people that are diagnosing us.
Oh, absolutely. And I think
How are they supposed to help a younger person if that's your outlook on it?
And I think for me it was so confusing because I had these attractions to men, but I knew I always liked women.
Yeah.
Like when my first girlfriend and I broke up when I was 16, 17, I cried every day for 2 weeks. you really just don't hear a gay man crying over breaking up with a woman for 2 weeks, especially like people that age who kind of have a beard, so to speak. They break up and then they're immediately over it. So because I had this attraction to women, because I'd been heartbroken by women, and I didn't think bisexuality existed, I was like, oh, probably straight. And then my first week in college, I got drunk and hooked up with a guy. So it literally took like 1 week to do that. And then I was hooking up
Was
with
that your first experience with a man?
Yeah.
That was
And
your first week?
It was my first week.
That's
You got a good
juicy.
education then.
Don't you love college?
He is now a Chelsea gay, bizarrely enough.
Cool.
But so I expected to have this big, like, aha moment where, like, I would kiss his lips and immediately I would know if I was gay and everything would be clear. And that is not what happened at all. First of all, I'd, like, be so drunk to get to that point. So I ended up vomiting twice in the middle of him blowing me. I, like, left the bathroom, like, very quickly to, like, just vomit because I was so drunk. And the next morning, I remember thinking to myself, like, that was fine, not great. I was drunk and embarrassing. I also remember getting, like, his beard hair in my mouth and thinking, like, that's kind of weird.
It's different. I've never met a woman
Because
like that.
I'm assuming you had been with women before, right?
I'd been with a lot of women before. But then, so I was like, maybe this isn't for me. But then I would get drunk and hook up with guys for like 5 years, and I hooked up with a number of men, and I, like, the whole time I had these weird rationalizations. I was like, oh, I'm just like drunk and horny, a hole's a hole. I'm just like open-minded and don't really see gender, and like I just always had these weird ways of not
making sense of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was my brother eventually, like probably a couple months after college, and I'm home in Los Angeles visiting him, and he's talking to me, and he goes, a lot of guys experiment, and they experiment for once, twice, maybe a couple of months. You've been experimenting for 5 years. Like, you're not experimenting
Maybe it's not an experiment
anymore. And I
And
like
it doesn't seem like there's an end in the future. It's
like this is
which
you.
it doesn't have to be.
No, and
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
and that really, having that from someone I loved and someone I trusted who was not judgmental and all of that good
Yeah.
stuff really kind of shook loose a few things in my brain. And then I saw like an LGBT therapist when I was in Boston, and in our second session, so
Which
I'm
was
ta-
a better therapist than the first.
much better therapist.
I would hope
yes,
so.
he
I'm
was.
assuming.
And on our second session, I'm going on my whole rant about how I'm confused. I don't know what I am. And he interrupts me and goes, you sound like you're bisexual. Like, I don't mean to interrupt you. Like, you clearly like men and you like women and you like them to different degrees. But, like, why do you keep saying you're confused when it seems like this is so obvious?
Right.
And I said to him, I'm like, does that even really exist in men? Like, that doesn't exist in men. And he almost looked at me in this way, like, Zach, you're too smart to think that. Of course it
Yeah.
exists in men. But the only people I knew who identify as bisexual for men came out as gay shortly after, and that was in college. And when that's the only thing you know, and this was before we had all the bisexual visibility and all these celebrities claiming the bisexual label proudly.
Right.
Janelle Monáe.
So yeah, exactly. So it like wasn't in the media. Everyone I knew who was bi came out as gay, and I had a psychiatrist tell me that bisexuality didn't exist. So I didn't think I was that 1 in a billion person who was bisexual. I just didn't think it existed.
So then explain to us
Interesting.
what would be the difference between bisexuality and being pansexual, like
So-
Janelle Monáe said.
Yeah, so it's a little confusing, and I think kind of the origin of this comes from the fact that like we used the word bisexual before we had a better idea of what gender is.
Right.
So a lot of people erroneously assume that the bi and bisexuality means you're attracted to cis men and cis women, cisgender men and cisgender women.
Right.
But that's not what it means. It just means you're attracted to 2 or more genders. So, for example, I am bisexual. Let me then say what pansexuality is. So, pansexuality would mean you're attracted to all genders: transgender men, transgender women, gender queer people, agender people. And
Are they sort of the same?
so they can be the same. It's kind of like, what is it? A square is a rectangle, and a rectangle is or something like that.
A square and a rectangle, yeah.
Or no, you know what I mean? Like, okay, never mind. But so For me, I'm attracted to all genders. So I'm bisexual. I'm also pansexual. I have my reasons for claiming bisexuality. It's the first word that I knew.
Right.
I think it honors like the great legacy of bisexual activists, and for me, it's not limiting. However, for many people, bisexuality and pansexuality can mean the same thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
But-
I know
no,
it's a
no,
little
that makes-
confusing.
No,
I
that
know.
makes a lot of sense because, pansexuality is more inclusive of the trans community and...
But the thing is,
You know.
it's not. And this is kind of the issue that's going
not.
on
Okay.
now. The idea is like bisexuality actually is inclusive of the trans community, and it's this misnomer that people think that it's not inclusive.
Okay.
Because you can be like me, like I'm bisexual, I'm attracted to all genders.
Right.
Well, I
Okay.
want to get more into that, but
So I know it's a little confusing.
we'll
for
get
sure.
more into that. I just want to remind you all we are live, and we're talking to you. Please comment, like us, some of the comments, and ask us questions. We have somebody checking in on that. He's going to give us your questions. So if you want to hear from Zachary or us, let us know. But I did want to get into a little bit of why is it that you think a lot of gay men don't accept bisexuality that much? And I mean, I think I was at a bar with somebody over here in our audience the other day, and it's not you, but he was so against, he's a gay man, and he was so against, like, oh, I don't believe in bisexuality, and I just feel like we have our rights. Why wouldn't we accept, like, the LGB in it? And have you experienced that with gay men?
Oh, absolutely. I've experienced that with gay men. And I think there are a couple of reasons. I think kind of what I mentioned before, there are a lot of gay men who use the bisexual label as a
Right.
stepping stone. So if they use it themselves, they automatically assume that therefore everyone else is using it as a stepping stone. But I also think the other thing is there's this idea that you're not a part of our community because there's so many bisexual people who end up in like opposite sex relationships where you have these bi
Right.
men who are
Uh-huh.
dating straight women. So at which point they feel as if you don't understand our struggle, you're not a part of us, you're not supporting us, you're not part of this community. Why are we inclusive of you?
Why would we include you? Yeah, I get that.
So I think that's often like this,
A
you're either
stigma.
with us or against us kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they often see us as bisexuals, especially in opposite sex relationships, as being against us.
But it could be like a formed stigma against, like,
Well, I mean, I know there are a lot of gay men who, when they come out, they use bisexuality as a stepping stone in the sense that then they still have that tie to straightness to a degree, where they've got this stepping stone and say, well, yeah, I kind of like men, but I still like women, so I'm bisexual, and then eventually they can step out into that. And they do use it as a stepping stone, which is not necessarily. I mean, it's only because gay is not even still is not completely accepted.
Well, to me,
So-
it makes me annoyed because I feel like if we got our rights as gay men, why wouldn't we let bisexual people have their rights, and why are we diminishing their right? And that, I'm a gay man, and it annoys me.
Yeah, and I think the idea is, well, you're ending up with a woman anyway. You've had your rights. You're not afraid of holding your girlfriend's hand while walking down the street versus I'm afraid of holding my boyfriend's hand while walking down the street.
Right.
You don't know our struggle. And I think that's the mindset that they have when it's like, no, you're right. We don't necessarily know that struggle. However, we have
Right.
different struggles of our own that you guys don't experience either.
Well, and you talked about that in one of your articles too, where when you're straight, it's very easy to be on the subway and kiss them on the lips in public and hold hands, and whereas with a man, it's a different sense. So I find that interesting. I find that interesting.
It's something, and I think one thing that even when I'm dating women, I hate this idea of being perceived of as straight, even though I'm dating her, and I think that's why I maybe even like queer
Right.
up my attire. I make sure my yes queen work bitches come
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, you talked about that. I love
Yes,
that.
I love that.
You talked about that in an article where I don't know if it's passing. You said it's easier to pass as straight when you're, say, with another man or with a woman. But if you are I mean, I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about that on how
It's
it's easier to pass sometimes?
I mean, passing is always a difficult thing to
Because
explain,
transgender
especially-
people go through that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it's different fears. It is one thing where, holding hands with my boyfriend when I had a boyfriend, would be more something I'm definitely more aware of. Where I'm doing it, can I do this? Is this a matter of safety? Am I walking home late at night? As opposed to, I don't have that fear with a woman. However, this idea that your life is necessarily better because you're able to pass, there are pros and cons to each. And I think this idea of passing, where for me, it's like I get to have kind of this queer identity that I have embraced, ripped away from me. And I don't like that. I like being perceived as queer. I want to be queer.
Yeah.
I want people to know that I'm queer.
But I read by his writing that he's like proud of both, so he doesn't really want to pass as one or the other, which is really interesting because you don't want to be not necessarily objectified, but also
Doesn't
not
want to be labeled.
boxed in
Yeah.
or labeled as one
Yeah.
or the other. You'd rather just leave the option to be open.
I mean, I want to be bisexual. That's
Yeah.
what I am.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what I want to be.
And sometimes it's easier just to, when you're with straight people, to use the lingo that they use. When you're with your gay brothers, to be like, hey, girl, and I think that's okay.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
I-
what you were trying to say,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I think all these aspects are part of
Cultural.
who I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that too. Yeah, absolutely.
We had a question for you. It's from Robert F. from NYC. Are there specific qualities you are attracted to in one sex and different ones in other sex? I'm assuming they're talking about, are there certain qualities you're attracted to in men versus women that
I like
you know what I'm
big
saying?
asses in men and women.
Wow, you're into big asses?
That is what I like.
It's like you.
Okay,
I
Jeremy.
think we all like
Okay,
that.
Jeremy.
that's kind of universal.
I like big dicks, so I'm just saying.
No, it's one of those things where I think I hear a lot of bisexual people being like, "Oh, I don't see physical features. I just see the person inside," and I'm like, "That's bullshit." Obviously, I'm attracted.
There's physical attraction.
No, and I'm
period.
attracted to all of it. It's
physical,
not one of those
yeah.
things, and yes, I'm not focused as much on a dick or a vagina. That doesn't bother me. But yes, I like women with big boobs and big ass.
Yeah.
I like men who are stereotypically muscular with big. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
like those things in both genders.
Right.
So it's not necessarily. Sorry, what was the question? I'm a little off topic, but in general, I like big asses. But then kind of what you
Well,
think.
I think you answered it. You like big asses in both men and women.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's what they wanted to know.
Yeah.
Specifics, yeah. So we have another question from one of our good friends, George. He said, have you ever had sex with a trans person or just a man or a woman?
I've had sex with everyone. I've had sex with trans men, trans women, pre-op, post-op, on hormones, but haven't had the money to, buy tits or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But no, with everyone. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. That's cool.
So it's
Yeah.
fluid for you.
It's fluid, and
good.
it's again, I think
And
a
it's
lot
also
of
like I've read some of your articles. It's also about in the moment with the person specifically. So it's how you guys vibe and
of course,
what
yeah, no,
works for.
and of course, there's an element of attraction that's not just physical.
Yeah.
You meet someone and
Yeah,
you hit
of
off with them,
course.
and they're very cool. And because I'm attracted to,
And
all
I think
body
we all
types,
surprise ourselves with not always. You wouldn't assume that would be the person that you would be into, and then
Well, I mean, I interviewed a retired psychologist, Dr. Doug Kimmel, and a friend of ours knows him. But anyway, he was saying that he recommends having sex with our friends, and in many ways because we know our friends so well, and that in the gay community, although he's all about sex, he's all about exploring. But we're entering a phase where all it is about the hookup, and it's if you can actually have more meaningful relationships. So if you get to know somebody a little bit more, and do you know what he was sort of alluding to? Yeah. And,
that way it's not just a hookup, but it's also it's not just a hookup. It's not necessarily like romantic love, but there's a level of like platonic love that you have
Right.
for a friend.
Well, yeah. There's hot sex and there's hot love and there's combinations of the two.
Exactly. And I think
You know?
for me, kind of going back to what you were saying, Jeremy, I think as someone who's attracted also like more masculine and feminine and
Yeah.
androgynous like spirits and personalities and
Yeah.
behaviors, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily just the body type. It's
Yeah.
also
No.
I'm attracted to all of these
It's not
types
really
of spirits and
calculated.
personalities. And so I think all of it kind of plays a factor, and I'm attracted to all of it.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had a friend too who was mostly a top, and he's like, oh, I think tomorrow night I'm going to be spending most of my time as a bottom, which I'm concerned about because I'm dating a bisexual man. I'm going out with a bisexual man tomorrow.
Bisexuals are also the biggest fucking bottoms I know.
Yeah, hello, hello. So I said to him, I said, why do you
You're
think
like, I
because
give the
he's
dick and then I
bisexual that
take
he's
the dick.
why do you think because he's bisexual that he's going to be a top only? I said, what are you thinking? You know, and he was like, oh, I hadn't really considered that. It's like, so trust me.
Yeah.
So we have a new question. Thank you out there. And once again, we are live on our Facebook page. We're talking to you. And you mentioned being fluid sexually. Have you noticed your interest changing over time?
Oh, that's a really good question. Sometimes I feel like it changes by, honestly, the hour.
By the
it
hour.
really is
By the
so
minute.
quickly.
By the weather.
By the weather.
I know my
At
legs
least
sort of
in New
rubbing
York.
against you, and I'm sort of like
now I'm attracted. I'm having
totally
this
like
whole-
attracted to you right now.
I know.
But
I think it's one of those things. This idea that. What am I trying to say here? I guess let me answer the question directly.
it goes back to the bottom thing that you said, right? That a lot of bisexuals are bottoms. And
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those, like, again, it depends on the person a lot, but they'll definitely have times where I notice that, like, oh, I'm checking out a lot more guys as I'm walking down the street. And then a month later, I'll be like, wow, I'm checking out a lot more women as I'm walking down the street. I'm always attracted to all of them. I think I can always tell also by my porn consumption, too. Like, if I have, like, 2 weeks where I'm just, like, watching just like gay male porn.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is what I want. And then I'll have a month of watching straight porn, and then I'll have a month of watching bi porn.
That's interesting that you say that, because I said that I bounce between so many different genres too.
You do? I do too. I watch a lot of straight porn too.
I don't.
No?
No, ma'am.
Does
No,
anybody
I'm
here
like
watch
the
straight
kids
porn?
E6.
I was telling a friend the other day, I was like,
Do you watch,
I don't.
Diego, do you watch straight porn or gay?
I was like, I have some
Both?
days where
You
I'm
watch
like,
both?
I
How
have
about you,
some days
Diego?
where I
Show-
watch.
show-
You don't watch porn.
I have some days where I watch.
Some
straight,
of us are having more sex than watching, but
I have some days where I watch straight women dominate men with strap-ons, and that turns me on.
wait, you watch, say it again?
Straight women dominating men with strap-ons.
Pegging.
Wearing a
Fucking
strap on.
them.
Pegging,
Yeah,
yeah.
pegging. It's called pegging. So that kind
Peggy?
of porn.
Peggy's in it? What? Who's
Pegging, not Peggy, bitch.
Who's Peggy? Show of hands. How many people here watch straight porn?
They don't.
Not a one of you? I mean, come on. People are being shy today.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, I also wanted to talk today about polyamory, which is not related at all, but can be.
I think that's one thing. Also, like, before I speak about it, I have to do like the big disclaimer. It's like not all bisexuals are polyamorous. We're not all cheaters. Like, plenty of us want like healthy, normal, not normal, but I'll say traditional monogamous relationships. I am not one of those people,
Right.
and I'm a very large advocate for polyamory.
And to be polyamorous doesn't even mean it doesn't mean that you're cheating or anything at all. It just what's your definition of to be polyamorous?
I think you're open to the idea of loving two or more people at the same time. And you're doing this with everyone's knowledge.
And you said a key word, love. And I think that's what I talked to Master Joshua, who has been on our show before, and he said a lot of people are throwing that word around, polyamorous, and it's not necessarily just hooking up.
And
It's actually taking the time to develop meaningful relationships with other people, and it's actually, at the core, it's about love.
So I think there's a difference between polyamory and non-monogamy. So polyamory, if you break it down in the Greek or Latin, I don't know, whatever the hell it is, but like poly means many, amory, amorous means love. So it
Right.
literally means many loves. Versus like an open relationship is not
That's not
necessarily
polyamorous.
polyamorous. You know,
Yeah.
it just means like, okay, you're open.
You're
you
gonna
like
get
to
off.
hook up with a bunch
So
of
you can
guys.
hook up.
But that doesn't mean
Right.
that you're polyamorous.
I mean, if we were to quote a definition, it's simply a person who has open sexual or romantic relationships with more than one person at a time. And one of the things that I read more about is that the communication is key. So it's not having, you could be in a relationship and it's not cheating. It has nothing to do with cheating or going outside of it. It's actually consensual. And I think that's key. Wouldn't you say to no?
No, I mean, you can cheat in polyamory.
Well,
Right.
people can do whatever they want, of course.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
like, polyamory doesn't necessarily mean, oh, you can do whatever you want, when you want, but people consider it, you know, they'll have rules like, hey, you can't sleep with someone else in the bed that we sleep in. If you do that, that's cheating,
And that's
quote
cheating,
unquote.
yeah.
Or
Right.
you're supposed to wear condoms with everyone else, then you break that, you lie about it, that's cheating. Yes,
Right.
it's a different form of cheating, but
Well-
it's breaking the rules of the agreement you have for
And
your
it's
polyamorous
outside of the
relationship.
boundaries of what you guys
Exactly.
have set.
But also, I think people misunderstand that polyamory doesn't mean you're in a threesome.
No.
You know, it's you can be in two different relationships where your two partners don't really have anything to do with each other.
But you could be
necessarily.
in
you could
a
be,
threesome.
You could
So
be.
that's
but
called
not
a
necessarily.
Yeah.
So a triad would be if all three partners are together and loving each other. I lived with my boyfriend and his wife. I was not intimate with his wife.
Yeah.
I was not dating his wife. She was a friend.
Right.
But she had, you know, a boyfriend and a girlfriend that was
Wow.
separate. And so it gets very confusing.
That's a lot of people.
It really is. And
Did
versus
you guys ever have like a potluck or anything, hang out all together?
Oh yeah, we did like family dinners,
Did
and like the
you?
family dinners would be like everyone comes
That's
in, it'd be really
cool.
cute.
Okay, Thanksgiving.
No, that
interesting.
actually, no, we did that.
fun.
That's kind of like everyone to hang out, which is nice because you really do become part of this. They call it like polycule, which is kind of like your group
Wait,
that you're.
say that again.
Polycule, so POLYCULE, and it's kind of like your group of people you're polyamorous with, and who I'm indirectly related to my boyfriend's wife's girlfriend.
Right.
Right, but like we're all part of the same
But
group.
which
in a
I would
sense.
assume makes it
Interesting.
maybe feel a little bit more comfortable because you all get to know each other. At least that you know that you're intimate with this person, which this person is intimate with the other. So it helps with the whole situation.
I think so too.
Are you currently in a polyamorous relationship?
Yes, I am. Well, so
Do tell.
Sure. So I'm actually dating this woman I met in Amsterdam while I was there for the month, and I called
I
her.
just was in Amsterdam.
Really?
Yes, yeah, but go ahead.
We'll talk about that later.
It's not about you, bitch.
I met her. Bizarrely enough, she had read an article that I had written. She reached out to me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm actually in Amsterdam," and I hung out with her and her
Right.
like bisexual best friend, and we hit it off. She's also bisexual, and now you know we're dating. We actually just got tickets for her to come out for my birthday, but also while I'm here, I'm still dating and looking for other people here, looking for love. So there's also this idea that to be in a polyamorous relationship, you have to be, you know, loving multiple people at once. No. I have this girlfriend, but I'm also pursuing other relationships here.
Right.
So it's not necessarily like I have a boyfriend and a girlfriend and all this. It's like, no, I have someone I'm dating there who we're serious, and then I'm also have my people here.
Right.
There's a really good film if you want to. Once again, we are live, so I'm going to get to a couple of your questions. But there is a great film, Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
That film is so great. You can get it on iTunes, and I think the director-writer is a female, and she really wanted to show the different sides and not fetishize what we would think of polyamory. And it's a great film if you haven't seen it. You should all see it. She basically told The Guardian, poly relationships or kink on film have usually been portrayed as salacious or transgressive in a negative way, and she didn't want to do that. And I recommend this film so much. It's also the impetus for Wonder Woman and how Wonder Woman was created. So anybody that loves Wonder Woman, you should watch this film. Did you watch it?
I did. Actually saw the Q&A with her at New Fest.
Wow. Okay.
With the director.
Cool.
So, the piece I wrote about it, it's likely fictionalized, even though she said based off
I'm
of a
sure.
true story. However, that doesn't make it any less valid. I think it's one of the best and most honest and realistic depictions of polyamory that I've ever seen.
And I liked it because it looked at all three of them in this. It looked at all of their viewpoints on it. It didn't over-sexualize one style of it, and I thought that was like progressive.
No, and I think there's still an element. She really like walked the fine line between the fact that like, oh, this is about love, but also it's about hot sex, because it is too. So like she showed that, but in a way that wasn't fetishizing or hypersexualizing. They clearly had this love, and this love can often lead to hot sex.
And thank you.
And they do go together very well.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, and thank you for saying that, Zachary, because I think one of the points of this is that, you know, although we're trying to break down bisexuality and polyamory, at least in this show, there is nothing wrong with having hot sex, and sometimes we do fetishize bisex and gay sex, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So as much as we want to like clarify a lot of these different areas, I think there's nothing wrong with just wanting to have, even if you fetishize it, right? I mean,
Right.
And
It's
I think you've said that in a couple of your articles too. Is like, even though you want to break down some of the who you are, you also there's also nothing wrong with being having a lot of sex and you know what I'm trying to say?
I think so. I think
We should own the fact that we're a sexual being, is I guess my point.
Absolutely. And I think for me,
Yes.
especially when coming out and becoming an activist, I was very worried about talking about like my sexual exploits, because I didn't want to perpetuate the stereotype that, oh my God, all bisexuals are slut,
Or
all they
gonna
care
cheat.
about- or they're gonna cheat, or they're gonna sleep around with everyone. And I'm like, oh no, but I am a slut. Like, I am a proud slut, and I
Right.
love that.
So am I.
And, like,
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, right?
We're all proud sluts.
But it was just something that was, I had to be very careful in the language, because there's
Right.
always these stereotypes that, oh my God, they're so slutty and they're cheaters and they're all
Right.
polyamorous. And it's like, well, I actually am polyamorous. I'm not a cheater, but I am the biggest slut you'll meet ever. So, like, it's
Have you met
recognizing. Well, later, we're going to meet in the back room. But,
Yes. And I guess my point is
That's
that
the post-show.
as much as we want to
Yeah,
clarify
but-
that, we don't want to be afraid of,
No.
you know, our slutty side too.
Absolutely.
But we do have a question from Frank P. from LA. Can you be poly and polyamorous and what's that?
And exclusively gay,
Exclusively
not
gay.
bi.
Oh,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
I mean,
polyamorous works in.
Yeah.
you can be polyamorous and gay. polyamorous
I
and-
know a couple of thruples that, you know, they've been together for years, and, you know, they don't cheat on each other, but there's 3 of them, and they're strictly gay. So, yeah.
yeah. We should also make the note too that like a lot of people, there's so many variations within a lot of polyamorous relationships, and not all of it is. There's not one blueprint for any
No.
of this.
I mean, polyamory means many loves. It doesn't mean that they have to be different sexes. Some people, they are different sexes. Some people, they're not. So, you know, whatever works for you.
There are plenty of polyamorous gay men.
Exactly.
And straight people. And everyone, yeah.
Lots of polyamorous straight people that you never know about because they don't talk about it because they're afraid.
Exactly.
And you are not afraid, and we're glad of that.
Thank you. Well,
Exactly. There was somebody I wanted to talk about. He is an actor. He's Italian, and I can't find my notes.
Nico?
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you say Nico's full name?
Torello?
Nico
Does that
Torello.
sound right?
He's in the show Younger, y'all.
Yes? Okay. Yes. Okay. We
He's
got to
beautiful. He is.
The
in
audience
a-
says yes.
So he is in a polyamorous relationship, and he has been within this relationship with a woman for years and years, and she considers herself a lesbian, which is interesting. And he had recently come out, and I guess my question to you was, they have had a lot of problems with family, and like say during the holidays, like Thanksgiving, that her side of the
God,
family
I can only imagine.
doesn't want them to come to like Thanksgiving dinner because they don't accept how they have come out. And I just wonder, have you experienced, we can all do what we want, but have you experienced family and traditional values play into your life?
Yes. Initially, it did a little bit. I'm lucky I come from like a Jewish liberal family in like the Los Angeles Valley, where
LA.
yeah, right.
Mazel
So
tov.
it was like not the biggest deal coming out, but polyamory. I remember my mother initially saying, she goes, "Zach, if you want to be a whore, just be a whore. You don't need to label it." To which my dad said, "Rose, there'll be no slut shaming in this house," which I thought was pretty funny.
But don't we all
Oh my
slut
God,
shame?
I love that.
But I think for her major fear was that I would always come second, which is such an adorable motherly thing where it's like, okay,
that
I was
is.
dating a man with a wife, like I'm never going to get the love
You're not
and
going to get the
attention
primary love. Yes.
that I deserve.
That's so parental. I
Um,
love that.
And that's kind of an adorable thing. And also then she felt bad from almost like a feminist perspective. She's like, what, so you two off like going to fucking guys at sex parties and the wife is left at home? I'm like, oh no, like the wife has a million partners. Like she's doing just fine.
She's with us and she's
But-
busy as well.
I think, so for me, it took a little bit of time for them to get used to, and it was time. But for my boyfriend, for example, when he was in a closed relationship, a monogamous relationship with his wife for about 6 years,
Yeah.
until they opened it up, and his parents were freaking out, being like, "Are you guys getting divorced? What does this mean? Why would you do this?" And I think a lot, especially like older generations,
Yes.
don't quite understand it,
Yes.
and really
one man, one woman, and that's it.
and that's it. But it's interesting. I always find it interesting, especially when, you have so many gay men who are so opposed to open relationships and polyamory, and kind of their rhetoric about it sometimes really sounds like the same language that Republicans use to say why
Yeah.
we can't get married. And it's just like, if
Right.
they're happy and it's consensual and they're in love and they're not hurting you, why does it matter so much to
Right.
you?
Because it doesn't affect you.
How
No, it
does
doesn't
it-
affect
yeah.
you. Like,
But
if you're not
don't worry
interested in
about
it,
it.
then you go
Yeah.
away.
I think a lot of that though is pendulum swing.
Yeah.
Because for so long gay men were not able to get married, and always were known as having multiple partners, et cetera, and now now you can
Promiscuous.
get promiscuous as yes. That's another word we won't get into, but but yeah, gay men are generally known as promiscuous. But now that the pendulum has swung a bit, and gay men can get married, you can adopt children, you can you can have that white picket fence that you never thought was ever going to be possible. That I think because of that, people are now a lot of gay men frown on the promiscuity and
Oh, get over it.
exactly.
Yeah, just
And
get over it.
it's like you're doing what you want to do. That's fine for you. But allow me that same freedom.
Exactly. Mutual respect.
Well, speaking of promiscuity, and we are coming up on the end of the hour here, but before I forget, there is an amazing organization if you are into polyamory, and I'm going to go to this. It's called openloveny.com. Kyle, who has been on our show for our first live broadcast, is one of the founding members. I also, for people here, if you want a flyer, they do a great cocktail hour at Delancey Lounge here in New York City. But go to openloveny.com to find out more about their schedule. But Zach, can I call you Zach?
Yes, please.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, you wrote an article about, or talked about going to sex clubs, or essentially sex clubs. And I've been to, in my lifetime, a good sex club here, but talk about like the difference between going to a sex club that was mixed and your recommendation. I think you said something about, you quoted somebody about how you should, if you're into somebody, how you should go up to them and
Introduce yourself.
introduce the
Yeah.
protocol.
Oh yeah,
Did I get your memory going?
Yeah, no, I'm like, what did I write? So I mean, I've been to plenty of co-ed sex parties, and then like Inferno and Harder and all the good ones here.
What are they called? Inferno?
Well, those are just the gay ones.
Oh, the
here.
gay ones, yeah.
Yeah, those are the gay ones here. And I think there's this element of people disagree with me, but it's a lot
People
more.
want to hear this. We'll speak.
Sure. So it's a lot more there at like gay sex parties. It's more you will touch, and if someone's not interested, they'll pull away, as opposed to at co-ed sex parties, you will still ask before touching.
And sometimes we don't know when to like pull away in gay parties.
Exactly. There are definitely some people.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, all right, enough. I'm
At
into
co-ed,
this guy.
are there men that are just not into other men, or do you not experience that often?
Ask
Wait,
that again.
what was
is
the
that?
question?
So like at co-ed sex parties, do you experience like you being into men that aren't into men in general?
They're different
or?
ones. I usually go to one where they're going to be more bisexual people. I don't want to
Okay.
I don't want to be the only bi guy with a bunch of straight guys
Yeah.
and women. So I find the
Right.
parties that
No,
are good.
of course that's boring,
Yeah. But so I think in those, what I always recommend doing is I go up, especially if you're like a guy talking to a woman, you start schmoozing a little bit. You say, I'd be really interested in schmoozing, yeah. You'd be really interested in doing this, and say what it is, having sex, doing this.
You're
can
like,
get really
bitch, I
kinky
want
as you
your dick.
and then say if you have time, let me know, and then you walk away, so that way it's not awkward. Because
Come
otherwise,
find me.
Oh,
yeah,
so
come
you-
find me. Exactly.
Yeah.
The
So
come
you
find me is
plant
the
the
best thing.
seed, and then
And that way they can come find you.
yeah.
Because otherwise it's still difficult for it to be like, hey, I want to have sex.
Yeah.
And then you're waiting there and they're like, no. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's very
Yeah.
difficult to say no in that situation.
It
So-
doesn't leave you hanging as much as
Exactly.
it
And it's,
would
and
if
it's
you
not
just-
uncomfortable for the person if they're
Yeah.
not into you.
Yeah.
Just to say no, go away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you
They
think
just don't
that's
come
just
find you.
being respectful, or do you notice that like men and women have different ways that you come on to them? In other words, like men, we could literally like grab someone's ass and you'll know
Yeah.
by a verbal or a eye contact that they're into each other. Do women have the same like verbal eye contact? Like, yeah.
I mean,
Of
there's
course,
definitely
you're
like,
talking to three gay men who don't have really much to do with women, so
Well,
we don't
no,
know.
I mean,
Well, no, that's why we're asking, sweetie.
well, I mean, there's still like, if someone's staring in your eyes for a solid 5 seconds, they're probably attracted to you, regardless of the
That's
gender.
true.
There's still these cues.
That's true.
But I mean, obviously, like women have been socialized in society where they've been hit on and catcalled.
Yeah, but
and
if
all
these women
things.
are at these sex parties, they're
they're
they're beyond all that.
No, they're not beyond all that, but they're still looking for. They still want a safe experience. They're down to
Safe.
have
We all
sex.
want safe.
Yeah, they want experience. They want to be consensual. They don't want to sleep
Do
with
we?
every guy there. They want to sleep with the guys they want to.
Right.
So versus there's sometimes I've been at gay sex parties where I'm just like, oh, it's almost like I'm. Nah, we don't have to go into that actually. But so. But yeah, no. So it's. I mean,
We
there's
know.
there's still the same like cues that you have
Body
to tell someone's into you
language.
and body language, and it's amazing when you see guys so clearly not pick up on it, and that's always just like don't make her say like you need to get the fuck away. Like how many times can she like turn away, try to leave the conversation, and you do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times the guys are a lot more aggressive and miss those cues, even in these supposedly safe sex spaces.
Or over touch. Like, I can't tell you how many. Well, the times I've been to a sex party.
Oh,
but-
bitch.
That you. Table A over there.
The regular.
Table 8 is laughing hysterically.
Yeah, that when like there's too many hands coming at me at one point, and I don't know like.
Oh, I just can't handle it.
I can't. Yes.
Hands.
Exactly.
Just
Well,
like Sybil.
exactly.
Wait in line, bitch.
Exactly.
Take a number.
Exactly. You had more questions, didn't you, from our live stream?
Yes. No, I was interested in your talk about Grindr, actually.
Oh yes,
Oh,
we
yeah.
love. So I know.
Apps.
So Zachary doesn't do his YouTube channel anymore, but he did do a hilarious video on the 5 tips that you should or should not do on Grindr.
And
This
I
was
lo-
a while ago. You have to tell me.
But I love what you touched on was the positive outlook on using the app. So how you shouldn't use it, and then the way that it would benefit you.
Yeah, I think.
And the number one that I took away from was don't spend more than 15 minutes on Grindr.
because the number of times I've spent like
5 hours.
5 hours, and
Hours.
then I look at it, I'm like,
Hours.
oh my god, like.
And you're still not getting
I
laid.
still
you
haven't
still didn't
come.
fuck
I'm not-
anyone.
it's 3 a.m. I need to go to bed. I have to work
Like,
the next morning.
Turn it off.
But I think, especially with dating apps, there's nothing inherently wrong with Grindr. It's in the way that you use it, right? And I
Grindr
think,
will be happy that you said that.
yeah.
Well, and,
I
and
mean,
we
I've-
have to be careful
I've
because I think you write for Grindr.
I do, and I've
Yeah, so-
shat on them plenty, so it's.
I
think they
noticed.
know.
I
I
noticed.
think they
Shit where
know.
you
I
eat.
mean, when you have all like the femophobic and racist and sizist comments, like, yeah, that's terrible, obviously. But I think when I look at it, there's a reason why I keep using it, despite all the negative experiences I've had. It's because I've met boyfriends off it. I've met the coolest people off of it. I've met,
Yeah.
lasting relationships. But you do have to, sift through a bunch of
Bullshit.
shit, for lack of
Sorry.
better words. But I think so. I think
read
some of the
that?
advice I give was be on it for 15. Like, don't be on it for longer than 15
Well,
minutes.
It's a waste of time. And the other one that I loved is that don't be on
That's a
Grindr
good
when you're with
question.
your friends.
Yes.
And which my friend John and I like have this thing that we'll be at a restaurant and we're like, you are at a dinner party. What are you doing, sweetie? You sometimes are on some of the apps that we've noticed.
Moi?
Yeah. And we're like at a public event or something. Yeah, I'm calling you out.
But also that means you were on it if you saw him.
Yeah, I'm looking over his shoulder.
Yeah, he's like, who's that?
Ping,
Yeah.
ping, ping.
I'm such a bitch sometimes.
Yes, you are, and we're going to talk about this later.
Yes, yeah. So, any more tips on? And can you find? Do people get mad at you, or do you say you're bisexual?
Usually I've gone through phases of saying I'm bisexual, but because most of my Grindr situations are truly just for like a 20-minute quickie, there's
Right.
no real reason to. Like, it doesn't add anything. They don't need to.
Which is one of your other tips. Is if you're looking for a relationship, don't go on Grindr.
Yes.
Go to
Okay, that's-
Tinder. Yeah.
I'm always
is it all coming back?
surprised by the. Thank you. Yes, I'm always surprised by the number of people who are like, God, I'm so frustrated with Grindr. I haven't found like a boyfriend. I'm like, that is not like they're like even Tinder
It's not
is
the right
better. Like,
platform,
it's
yeah.
clearly not like there are better platforms. Like, why would you think on this app like that this would be fun? I mean, that said, you can still find a boyfriend, but also that same guy sends me an unsolicited picture of his close-up butthole, and then he's like, I can't find a boyfriend. I'm like, well, probably
hello?
not the best way to go about it. Like, I'm only
Yeah.
going to see you as a sex object if you present
Yeah.
yourself that way.
As that, yeah.
So I think being honest about your expectations.
I do have a friend who has had two boyfriends that he found on Growler specifically, and they're both completely crazy. You know, it's like it's like you found two crazy people. He attracts crazy people anyway, but you know.
Sweetie, we're all crazy.
Well, that's
So
true,
I have
but-
another question from one of our viewers. Robert Flower is asking, do you find relationships with men or women easier? What are the differences and similarities between both?
Oh, that is a
Which is a very
That's
that's
good
a
that's a-
complicated question. Usually I find relationships with men easier. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that my
Jealousy.
No, not jealousy. No. But I think my lifestyle is so gay. I go to gay bars. I write for gay magazines. If I go to a gay bar with a woman who I'm dating, first of all, they're going to be pissed off that there's a
Yeah.
woman infiltrating that space. Who knows how they're going to
course.
respect her?
Why'd you bring her?
I've had sex with 50
Why
of
is
the
she
guys
here?
there. They're jealous
Yeah.
that I'm with a woman. They
Yeah.
don't treat her with respect. And because, like, my ex who was back in Boston, she was a woman, and we went to Pride, and she ended up crying and going home because we were at these Pride events, and the number of drunk assholes she overheard just being like, oh my God, she doesn't even know her boyfriend is gay. How pathetic. Like, gay men saying that audibly so she could hear, and
it's
she
like,
identifies...
hello?
Like, she could hear it, she identifies as queer and genderqueer and sexually fluid, and still in this space that was Pride, where she
Yeah.
should feel welcomed and accepted.
Exactly.
Of course.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not because necessarily of me. It's because of kind of the culture we live in and the people I associate with
Yeah.
myself with. I do find it easier to date men, but that said, I have a girlfriend in Holland right now, so it's not. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not looking for the easier route
No,
necessarily.
but the relationship itself, what are the pros and cons between both,
I think that.
based off of being a different sex?
Fashion.
Well, I mean,
Well, with,
Well, that would be
with,
for
with a
me.
man after sex, you can go to sleep and he will chew.
it's. I mean, it depends. I mean, I think a lot of the things are just kind of as I mentioned, just my activities, my hobbies, what I like, everything is, RuPaul related. So even when I date a woman, she has to have been watching RuPaul since season 1. She has to like the same
she has no choice.
gay things that I do like.
She has to be a big girl, too.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, enough of that. To quote RuPaul,
Enough of that.
I've heard enough. I've made my decision. So we have a question for you. How do you negotiate or navigate safer sex within a polyamorous relationship? The same way you would with any, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to come to an agreement with your partner. I mean, I've been on PrEP for a while. PrEP. For a while, but there was a point where my boyfriend couldn't go on PrEP because he actually got pancreatitis.
Say it again?
Pancreatitis, which is his pancreas was failing, which is
Yes.
one of like the weird
Inflammation of the
random
pancreas,
side
yeah.
effects that will happen. And honestly, more in solidarity, I would wear condoms with other people, so because he had to wear condoms with other people. And then what would happen is I'd get drunk and I'd slip up and I wouldn't wear a condom, and then I'd go back and I'd tell him and I'd get tested, whatever
Right.
it is, 10 days later, and we use condoms until then. But otherwise, me and him would have, unprotected sex. So I think it's just navigating what it is that you want, and then also if you do slip up, if you don't just it's not the end of the world. Like you just go in, you
Just-
tell
yeah.
them,
Just
hey,
That's what you say, Jeremy.
hey, I messed up,
Be honest, yeah.
and then you get tested, and then you deal with it.
That's so what you say all the
Yeah,
time.
it totally is.
I'm like always panicked, but yeah.
But I've been on it for a while too, like you said. So
Yeah.
Before we go, is there hope for gay men, just accepting bisexuality and not making us also? I think again, my point of doing the show was we share in the acronym LGB, and do you think there's hope for us gay men to unite a little bit more?
Of course. No, I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think there was hope.
And
if I think
thank
it was a
you.
lost cause, I wouldn't be here. I think a lot of it comes down to education and visibility. And again, there was no visibility and no idea of what bisexuality, or just
That's
kind of
true.
the
There was
trials and
nothing.
tribulations that
Other
bisexual
than
men-
in the media that has always been salacious or
Exactly.
negative.
So I think just in talking about it, I'm not gonna, it's not gay men's fault. They didn't know any better because they
True.
haven't been educated.
Good
They had no
point.
idea. But now we're in a point where in the past 5 years, the amount of just bisexual content I've seen on LGBT sites have increased exponentially.
Oh, yeah.
So just take advantage and read it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all I'm asking. But I think the content is now out there. There's going to be more content. There's going to be more people who are identifying as bi and pan and everything else.
Right,
So
right,
as
right.
this happens, I think gay men will slowly become more accepting.
And before you go, where can people follow you? And I know you have some exciting things
just
coming.
the following's
follow.
fine.
Okay, with that.
So yeah, follow me on Twitter at Zachary Zane _, and that's that for everything. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all Zachary Zane _.
And read his articles. Didn't you love his articles?
He's a
you
great
guys?
writer. You really are. A
You
great
really
writer.
are, yeah.
I like your articles. They're unique, and they have a very specific point of view, which I love.
Thank
And-
you. Yeah,
and they're very genuine.
Yes,
and heartfelt. So yeah.
Please read all my articles. That's great.
Absolutely.
My editors will be happy.
Thank you for doing the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Rebar, for hosting us.
Yay, Rebar.
Come
Thank
to
you.
Rebar Chelsea. Here in the heart of Chelsea, my neighborhood. Thanks you all for coming here to support us. And you can listen to us on iTunes, all Stitcher. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on everything. We come out every single Tuesday. Thank you, Jeremy Ross Lopez on my far left. Thank you, Steve Carpenter next to me.
It was fun.
Yeah, follow us at Talk About Gay Sex. And in the meantime, what are we doing? We're having hot
Gay
sex.
sex.
Thank you.
Thanks. You're doing whoopee?
Darling. Like she's calling the shots. Highlighter scratch.
The brain just put all the noise in the background.
No, I know.
I can't. I've never done that.
It's really loud tonight too.
I just haven't ever done that. So I was like, fuck. I'd be thinking about something and I'd lose. I'm like, fuck, and then I'd start over. Sorry about that. Okay.
I didn't notice anything.
And just keep in mind that this show has a life way